So welcome students, and today we are going to start with a nested for loop. In the previous class we have gone through the for loop, and in fact we have taken many programs related to that. So I hope now you have a good hand onto the for loop. Unless and until you do not practice it, it is going to be bit difficult for you to understand, but you need to practice and then it becomes easy. Today we are going to switch to nested for loop. So that's one step ahead now. So we have already learned what is a nested if. So a if statement under another if statement will be called as a nested if. Similarly, a nested for loop will be a for loop which is inside another for loop will be called as a nested for loop. Let us take some example. I will take a for loop for I in range, and I will take a range of 5. So if I have specified only 5, so this is going to generate a series from 0 to 4, and then simply I will print the value of I. Now you might have guessed the output of this particular code. So I will say nested for dot py. Okay, and now you can see the output, that is 0 to 4, and that was very much expected. So now what we will do is we'll make a nested for loop. For nested for loop, what will I do is inside this for loop, let me have a one more loop, that is for, and I will use another variable name, that is a j in range. Okay, j in range and 5 again, and inside this I'm going to print the value. I will print two values, that is I comma j. Okay, and now what output we are going to have? In fact, what will I do is, okay, let me just keep it as it is. So now what output we are going to have? Let us first understand this. For I in range, I will be initially 0. This range function is going to generate numbers from 0 to 4 in a list. I is going to take the value from the list, that is I will be 0, then 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I initially will be 0, and then again inside this for loop we have another for loop, and even that is j in range, that is 5. So even this is going to generate a series, that is 0 to 4. So even j initially will be 0. Now please understand that whatever we have inside this I loop, let me call this as a I loop since we are using the variable I, and this as a j loop. Okay, j loop is inside the I loop, and I is going for 0 to 4. So the iterations for I loop is 5 times, right? The iterations are 5 iterations. So whatever we have inside this for loop will get executed 5 times, because I is going to go for 5 iterations. So inside the I, whatever we have, the block code, right, it is going to get executed 5 times. So the first thing that should be very much clear to you, that this j loop is going to get executed 5 times because this comes under the I. Okay, now let's come to j. Even j has a range from 0 to 4, and inside this j loop we have this print statement. Now please understand this indentation. You can see that this particular print statement is inside the j loop, and this entire j loop is inside this I loop. Okay, so I will be 0, j will be also 0 initially, and then it is going to print value of I comma j. So what value it is going to print? It is going to print 0 0. Okay, so let me just type the values, that is I is equal to 0 and j is equal to 0. This is, I am only doing it for your understanding how the values are getting changed. Okay, so now it printed 0 comma 0, so 0 0 0 space 0. Okay, that is what the output we are going to have, and then we are not providing any end argument, so it is going to come to the next line. Now what is going to happen next after this statement gets executed? Now please understand that this particular print statement is inside this j loop. Since this is inside the j loop, this particular statement will get executed 5 times, right? and this j loop is yet not over. We have started with I and we started with j, and inside that we have I comma j. So first the j loop, since the j loop has started, first the I started, then the j started. Now the j loop will first get over, it will complete all its iterations. So next time the value of j will become 1. Okay, and what will be the value of I? The value of I will be 0. Why 0? Because yet this particular statement is not yet over. When this entire for loop ends, okay, when this entire for loop will complete all its iterations, then the value of I will be 1. Okay, so let the j loop get over first. So j will be 1, and then I'm printing I comma j. So this will print, that is I will remain as it is and j will become 1. This is what is going to happen. Again, after printing 0 1, it is going to go for j, for the next value of j, and the next value of j will be 2, and I will remain as it is because yet we are completing the j loop. Okay, and then j will be 4 and I will remain as it is, not 4, it will be 3, and then this is going to remain 0 itself, and then j will become 4 and I will remain 0. Now this loop, since j has become 4, this loop will get over. Now the statement is over. Okay, this particular j loop is over. Now that this j loop is over, now the outermost loop I will become 1. Okay, and when I becomes 1, again inside this we have this statement, that is a j loop. Again j is going to start from 0 to 4. Okay, so what is going to happen is when I is going to be 0, j is going to run from 0 to 4. Once that happens, I will become 1 and then j again runs from 0 to 4. Then I becomes 2, again this runs from 0 to 4. So if you really check the output of this particular code, we are going to have something like this. Okay, let us understand this. See, I comma j, right? We are printing I comma j. So this particular column that you see all the zeros is I, and this is all j's. So you can see that I is remaining 0, but j is going from 0 to 4, right? Then this j loop gets over, then I becomes 1, and that is that next value, that is I becomes 1, and I will remain 1 for all the time the j will run from 0 to 4. Then I becomes 2 and again j runs from 0 to 4. Okay, you can focus over here, I comma j. So this is I, this is j. I remains 2, j runs from 0 to 4. Then I becomes 3 and j runs from 0 to 4. And then I becomes 4, again j runs from 0 to 4. So this is how a nested for loop is going to work. So I hope that this is very much clear to you. And okay, and now we are going to do some really interesting things with this. Now for example, if I make this as 2, so what is going to happen if I make this 2? That is a j loop is 2, which means there are only 2 iterations, 0 and 1, and I is going to run from 0 to 5. So what output is going to have? I will be 0, j will run for only 0 and 1, then I becomes 1, j again runs only for 0 and 1. Okay, so let me just run this and show you the output, and you can see this is the output that we had, and now we had a very small output, right? So this is, you know, how much? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10. Total we have 10. So that is 5 into 2, because I is running 5 times, 5 iterations, and j has 2 iterations. So total execution time of the entire for loop including the nested loop is 10, right? So you can see these values are 10 values. Okay, I'm just talking about these values. I'm calling this as 1 2 3 4 until 10. Okay, so let us understand this. What happened? I was initially, I will be 0, j will be 0, so it printed I comma j, so that is 0 0. That's fine. Now j is going to go for the next value, that is 1, and I is going to remain as 0 itself, so 0 comma 1. Okay, then now this loop, the j loop is over, then I will switch to the next number, that is 1, so it is going to print 1, and again j will start from 0 to 1, so 1 0 1 1. Okay, and then I becomes 2, so 2 0 2 1, then I becomes 3 3 0 3 1, and then finally I becomes 4 4 0 4 1. So totally we have 10, so 5 into 2 10. Okay, so these are 5 iterations and these are 2 iterations, so simple. Okay, so I hope that this concept is very much clear to you. Okay, this is really important for your future to understand how a nested for loop works. So this is a complete science basically. Okay, and that is what computer science is all about. So now this is 5, this is 2, and if I make this as 2 and this as 5, so for I 0, j is going to run from 0 to 4, for I 1, j is going to run from 0 to 4. So let me just run this and we can see this is 0, I will remain 0, but j runs from 0 to 4, then I becomes 1, and this runs from 0 to 4. Again, these are like total, we have total 10 iterations, that is 5 into 10, 5 into 2 10. So total there are 10 iterations basically. Okay, so this is how the things function. And now let us do something really interesting. Okay, I'm going to make some changes in this particular code. I'm going to make this as 5, and I'm going to make this as I. Okay, this as I, and let me start I from 1. So I is going to start from 1 and go till 5. I want this, it should go till 5, so I'm making this as 6. So what is going to happen now? I is going to have 5 iterations, but I is going to start from 1 to 5. 1 2 3 4 and 5, and then what is this is happening inside? This is, I'm saying that for j in range I, okay, only I. Okay, so what is going to be the value of I initially? That is 1. Since I'm starting with 1 and j in range of I, so this is going to start, j is going to start from 0 since I did not specify the start value. Okay, why 0? Because when I say range of I, the value of I is 1. So this is range 1. So if I say range 1, it is going to start from 0. So how many iterations this is going to go for? If I is 1, so this is j of range of 1 actually. Range 1, because the value of I is 1. So this is range 1. How many iterations it is going to go for? Only for 1 iteration, isn't it? So that is only for 0. So if I is 1 and j is going to be 0, it is going to print 1 comma 0, and then this loop, the j loop, gets over. Why it gets over? Because there is only 1 iteration. Okay, then I becomes 2, and then I say range of I. So what is the value of I? 2. So this is range 2. How many iterations j is going to go for? 2 iterations, that is 0 and 1. So now it is going to print, that is value of I is 2 comma j. So 2 comma 0, initially j will be 0, and then 2 comma 1, so that is 2 1. Okay, let me just run this so that it will be very much clear to you. Okay, we have this output that is over here. Okay, and you can see that I is 1, I started from 1, and j started from 0, and this was the only 1 iteration. Okay, it only went for 1 iteration over. And now next you can see that I became 2, and then I say this is range I, so range 2. So this went for 2 iterations, 0 and 1, and you can see 2 0 2 1. Okay, then I became 3, and this is range 3. So this loop range 3 is going to go for 3 iterations, that is 0 1 and 2. So you can see 3 0 3 1 and 3 2, right? So 0 1 2. Then I became 4, and it went for this j loop went for 4 iterations. So whatever the value of I we have, j is going to go for that many iterations. If j is 1, it will only go for 1. If j is 2, the j loop is only going for 2 iterations, and so on. When I becomes 5, you can see the last value, I becomes 5, j is going from 0 to 4, right? Because this is range I, that is 5. So range 5, that is 0 to 4, and I will remain as 5 itself, right? The innermost loop gets over, outermost loop also gets over, and that's where the program terminates. So I hope that this is very much clear to you. A bit confusing, but you need to practice on this. Okay, you practice, and then it becomes pretty easy. Okay, so now what will I do is uh, remove j, no, I will remove I from here. Okay, and I will end this with empty string. So which means what? After printing j, it is not going to go for the next line. Okay, this is what it means. Okay, this end is equal to nothing, and so the j loop will run, and it is going to print the value of j, and it is going to be in the same line. Okay, but I will come outside this j loop. Now I have just outside the j loop, but inside the I loop. Okay, and I'm going to say, I will say print. So if I say only print, it is just going to print the next line. Okay, so I will be printing the value of j inside this j loop, but I'm going to be in the same line. But once this j loop gets over, then this statement which comes under the I loop, okay, this comes under the I loop. You can just check that indentation. Okay, this is exactly at where the j loop is. So this is inside this I, this is inside the j. Okay, so what output we are going to have? So I is going to be 1, and this is 1, so it is going to be 0 and 1. So let us keep as it is. Okay, let me just run this and show you the output. And here it is. This is a kind of a pattern that we have generated, and it starts from 0. Then the next line it is 0 1, 0 1 2, 0 1 2 3, and 0 1 2 3 4. Why we had this output is because I started I, which is a range 1 comma 6, so this goes from 1 comma 5. Then j in range I, so the value of I is 1, so this is going to go for only 1 iterations, that is j will be 0. And with this end, I'm going to be in the same line. So the loop, this particular statement gets executed, prints that 0, but remains on the same line. Then this loop itself gets over because this is only for 1 iteration. Then outside the loop, this is the next line. So I come to the next line now, and then what happens in the next line is I will become 2, okay, and j in range 2. So this is 0 comma 2. So it is going to print 0, and then it is going to print 1. And since we have just said end argument with null, so it is not going to go to the next line. So 0 and 1 is going to get printed on the same line. Okay, so this loop gets over, then we are coming outside the loop and we are printing the next line. So next time I will become, that is 3, and the j loop will run from 0 1 and 2. So we are printing that in the same line. And then outside the loop, outside the j loop, we are coming to the next line, printing 0 1 2 3, 0 1 2 3 4. Okay, so if I really want this that it should start from 1 and not with 0, so what will I do is I will give this start with 1. I can do this, but then it is going to go for one less iteration. So I will say I plus 1. So this is 1 and I will be also 1. So 1 plus 1, that makes 2. So 1 comma 2. Now this is going to go for one iteration. So you can see the output of this, and this is what we are going to have. Okay, so you can see that I started from 1 and I say I is going to be 1. So 1 plus 1, that is 2. So 1 comma 2. So this is going to go for only one iteration, but the value of j is going to start from 1. And that's the only change that I made, and we had this pattern. Okay, So hope this is very much clear to you. Now you need to practice onto this. Okay, you really need to practice onto this. I'm not going to move further unless and until you practice onto this. Practice this, and then let us meet tomorrow. Okay, and then on Friday we will be having the live session. So if you have any confusion regarding the nested loop, we can discuss that. Okay, so please go ahead, practice what I did, and then make yourself perfect. And then on Friday we will meet. Tomorrow anyway we are going to have okay, tomorrow we have Thursday, then day after tomorrow on Friday we are going to go for the live session. Okay, so that's it for today, children. Bye for now.